Let me ask you two questions, and each of them only requires you to answer yes or no. If you had a few insider secrets with a proven formula that would allow you to present 5 or more offers a day, every day for the next year on properties that would make you $5,000 to $25,000 per deal with little or no risk, would that be a game changer for you? If you had a few simple tools that would almost ensure you'd get 2 out of every 5 deals accepted, would you be able to reach your ultimate financial goal much faster? Remember, these are on market properties right in your own backyard, and people with funds to close quickly are buying them day after day after day. Hey guys, I'm James Graham, or as some like to affectionately call me, Jim G or Coach Jim. And if you've answered yes to either of those questions, welcome to video number 1. And I've got some great news for you. During this video training series, you will learn my 7 simple steps you can use today to pick up and profit from the wave of on-market houses. And it all starts with the use of a few simple tools and resources, which I will tell you about in a couple of minutes, that are right in front of us every day, that we either have chosen to overlook or have been taught to overlook by the so-called experts who just want to sell us the next best thing. So if you have access to the internet and or a cell phone, after I'm done with this training, you will be thoroughly equipped to overcome your greatest problem of not being able to find access and buy profitable properties on your own. But I will warn you, you need to have access to capital and be prepared to buy, because by this time tomorrow, if you are really serious and follow my cheat sheet step by step using the free tools and resources, you can have and you should have 5 profitable offers made in the next 24 hours. Just imagine the financial freedom you will have knowing at any time you can pick up this cheat sheet, follow my 7 simple steps, and access more properties, which means more cash flow, more equity, and greater long-term wealth for you and your family. Whether you're looking to buy and hold, buy, rehab, and flip, buy and quick flip, or buy and wholesale flip, you will soon see that your exit strategies will be limitless. But let me make this little disclaimer here. The steps I'm about to reveal to you, I used to use daily. After doing it over and over again with the same successful, profitable results, I realized that it really does work. So I decided to hire a few people to help me. I did get really, really good at this, and I've made millions for myself and others with these techniques. My team and I used to buy and sell 50 to 100 properties a year, and I've easily done over 700 deals. I regularly kept around 350 units in my portfolio. Today, I don't desire to have that many units in my portfolio. As I've gotten older, I'm not trying to rule the world anymore. I have kids graduating from college, kids entering into college, and frankly, I'd rather be spending more time with my wife and with my kids than managing a staff of 50 people like I used to handle the buying, the selling, the property management, the accounting, the legal, and all the other things that go with having that type of portfolio. But I love real estate. It's been a tool and a vehicle that God has blessed me with to build great sources of cash flow and wealth. So I still use it today. But the disclaimer is, personally, I don't use the step-by-step method exactly as I'm going to lay it out to you today because I've learned it so well. And so I paid my programmers to build into my website systems which automate many of the steps which I'm about to walk you through. So now between my couple of virtual assistants and the automations built into a few of my websites by the programmers, I get to see more properties than I can do anything with. And you already know, if you've been to my website, usainvestorsrealty.com, I have over 1,000 high cash flow, high equity properties listed and posted. And that's only a fraction of what I have in the database. I can't buy 1,000 properties, nor would I want to if I could. So I pick what I want and I leave the rest out there on my website for my friends, partners, students, and members to benefit from. So if anyone has told you that the market is too competitive right now, or that you can only profit from the secret off-market properties, you can see if you've spent any time on my website that I'm finding them every day with 50 to 100% equity and over 50% cash on cash returns. So don't believe the naysayers. These guys are usually the same people who either don't have any properties or who have something to gain by you not knowing that if you do things just a little differently, you will begin to see that they exist and are right under your nose. So before I walk you through each and every one of the 7 simple steps you can use today to pick up and profit from the wave of on-market houses, step by step, and show you how it all works, let me give you a little background information on myself and what I had to go through to develop these rules so you'll understand just how powerful they really are. So here's my story. How I how I miraculously became someone who's bought, sold, owned, and made millions in real estate, even though I grew up having a single mom who rented in the ghetto most of her life. I being the oldest child of 3 kids in a broken home that was so poverty stricken that when I was fortunate enough to become the first one to ever go to college, we had to coast on hills to save gas when I was going to my college orientation because my mom, who did what she could to get us there, only had a few dollars to give a friend of hers who had a car and was willing to help me get from Schenectady, New York, where I went to high school, to the University of Buffalo for my first and only visit for orientation prior to attending that fall. There were 3 things that happened, 3 eye openers that changed my life forever. The first and the greatest thing was in 1988 on a cold winter day in Buffalo. My phone rang and it was my mother. She asked if I were sitting down because she had some really bad news for me. I said yes, and I remember to this day, my heart dropped to my stomach because she never gave me bad news that way. It was just before noon on a Saturday morning, and I was actually laying down in the room of my small off campus apartment that I shared with a housemate, Luis from Venezuela. She said that she went to the doctor and they diagnosed her with a disease that at the time no one knew much about. But most people who got it usually died within a year or two. I was devastated and I cried like a baby. When we hung up, all kinds of things ran through my mind. But the thing that drove me most was the big question: how am I going to take care of my younger brother and sister if my mom dies? I was already in the Army Reserves. I enlisted 2 years prior to have some extra income while I was at school. But outside of that, I didn't have a job. I was still about a year or so from graduating, but I was a horrible student, to say the least. I studied too little and played too much. So I made a decision that day that I needed to be in a situation where I could take care of my mom and my siblings and do it quickly. That same day, I met Carlton Sheets, a real estate guru. Well, I didn't meet him. I saw his infomercial, which came on TV, How to Buy Property, No Money Down. After watching it, I knew that was for me. I ordered his course with the little money that I had, and when I got it, I tore it open, studied it day and night, studied it harder than anything I'd studied before. I left school that summer, got a job, and began making offers on properties at the good old age of 21 years old. I learned a lot about perseverance as I began placing offers. It took me a while to get my first property, but after a lot of declined offers, mostly due to my age and lack of experience, but also I want to give a little bit of credit to the few realtors out there that seemingly lived to discourage me. And it seems like a lot of those realtors exist today. Not trying to discourage me, but I hear a lot of the same stories from other investors who that have their dreams of building wealth and building a high cash flow investment portfolio shattered because they're making it seem much more difficult than it really is. And that's for investors with money. And the ones that are very limited with cash, and I teach many of them how to do this creatively with very little cash. And I use a lot of those same creative strategies today still, but that's a whole different training. Their spirits are all but totally broken by the time I begin to work with them. Have you or are you experiencing that type of discouragement yourself from either outsiders or loved ones, friends, and family members that are telling you real estate is too risky, you shouldn't do anything. And just having your dreams just shattered. Well, I'm sorry for that, but I'll tell you it stops here because if you follow these steps step by step, by this time tomorrow, you will have a handful of profitable offers that that's handpicked by you pending. And when you finally do close on one, you'll be able to see, and so will they, just like I did, and many others that I've taught, that it can be done. So just hang in there. So back to where I left off. About a year after I began making offers on properties, I got my first one at the age of 22. It was an amazing feeling. I paid $32,000 for the house. I was able to get it with seller financing, 500 down, and it was from a broker investor who just believed in me. His name was Ender Malik. And if Ender, if you're listening to this today, I just want to thank you because you believed and in a time when I was getting pretty discouraged, but it paid off for you, it paid off for me, and it paid off for so many others that I've had an opportunity to affect because I had that chance, that first opportunity that you gave me. So thank you. So one of the main reasons that I was doing all this was to move my mom, and she had decided not to move to Buffalo. However, my brother graduated from high school that year and he came to live with me. My sister stayed back with my mom. So my fiance at the time, who's now my wife, and I went on to remodel the house. The house was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath cape that we lived in on the bottom floor with an unfinished upstairs that we converted into a 1 bedroom studio apartment. After remodeling the house, increasing the value, I refinanced it. In about a year or so, I paid off the seller held mortgage. And after paying off the seller held mortgage, there was still $18,000 of cash that I put in my pocket. I took part of that out to buy another property down the street. It was a single family house, and I moved to that one and rented the 2 units here for cash flow. And the rest was history, in the sense that once I saw that it worked, I kept on doing it. But it took me another 9 years before I became financially independent and went full time into real estate investing. I was driven to do so from the second lesson I learned. As my military experience taught me the value of hard work and the experience I gained doing the Carlton Sheets creative real estate taught me the value of working smart. The combination of those two characteristics helped me to rise quickly through the ranks of corporate America, even without finishing up my college degree. I guess it's right when they say sometimes it's the school of hard knocks that has a lot more value than just the formal education. Early in my real estate endeavors, I convinced myself that if I wanted to buy lots of property, it would help to have a job. So I went to work and decided to go into banking so that I could learn about money and how to access it. After a few years of working for one of the major US banks, first as a teller, then as a mortgage file clerk, I applied for one of their most prestigious management training programs. And although I had no degree and my manager would not give me a recommendation and also told me that I would never get accepted, I was selected. I was chosen to become one of their corporate management trainees, where only 10 people in the country were selected out of hundreds of applicants who all had college degrees. A year after I began, I graduated from the program and I was given an option of choosing which bank line of business or bank division I wanted to be in. I chose to go into the bank's commercial lending division. So they packed up my belongings, bought out the house where I live in Buffalo, and moved me and my beautiful newlywed wife and baby to Rochester, New York, to help them grow their market presence. I went from making $21,000 a year as a mortgage file clerk 18 months prior to over $100,000 with salary and bonuses. This was truly my dream job. But the problem is, I never really wanted a job. My real passion was to be financially independent. And I knew I learned long before that in order to do that, you couldn't be working for someone else in most cases. So I began to fall asleep on my dreams because there were a lot of perks. I was playing golf at the best country clubs with clients, going to NFL and MLB games in our corporate suites, eating lunch and dinner at the finest restaurants. And that was all on the bank's dollar because it was part of my job as a commercial relationship manager slash loan officer. But after 2 years of having record account growth and loans made, a reality check that I was always afraid of smacked me right in the face. The reality was that someone else, in this case the bank, still controlled my income. That was the lesson I learned. One year during our quarterly bonus payout period, the bank decided after we brought in all this new business to them that they were going to change how they were calculating bonuses and make it retroactive. Unfortunately, these changes meant that instead of getting my bonus check in a week for $25,000, it would only be about $8,000. After jumping through a few hoops and having to justify my getting what I was supposed to be paid, I did get the $25,000 that I earned. But I said to myself, this would never happen again. So I dusted off my real estate stuff and I got busy building my portfolio. But now my efforts were on steroids because I learned a few things from corporate America over the last few years about systems and numbers, and I implemented them into my buying strategies. So in the next 12 months, I began buying and selling part-time, which was really full-time. I would just leave the bank at the end of each workday and go right to work putting in offers and closing deals, sometimes till 1 in the morning. Then back to the bank at 8 a.m. To make a long story short, after a year of doing deals, I made over $300,000 doing flips, and in January of 2000, I handed in my resignation. I never looked back.